Her voice echoed in the dark. "My husband is being incredible. Everything's great." Just 18 days later, she was shot to death inside the home where she once felt safe. Jennifer Sheffield, a beautiful medical student, a devoted mother and a wife who believed in a peaceful divorce. And Brandon, the man who once swore he would love her forever. They were once the picture of honest, genuine love, until that love turned into obsession. A hopeful TikTok video, followed by a morning so tragic it stunned the entire state of Mississippi. What twisted a perfect breakup into a cold-blooded tragedy? Who was the true victim, and who was the one who couldn't accept being left behind? Join me as we uncover the chilling truth in Murder of Jennifer Sheffield True Crime Stories. If real, haunting true crime cases interest you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next story. Everyone used to say that when their eyes met for the first time, there was something undeniably beautiful between them. No one knew that same look would one day mark the beginning of a tragedy that would leave an entire town in shock. That is how Faye Lott, Jennifer's closest friend, remembers the moment everything began, the day a love story that seemed straight out of a fairy tale took its first step toward disaster. It happened at a small community gathering in Mississippi. Soft music drifted on the warm country breeze, and in the middle of the crowd, Brandon Lee Sheffield's eyes stopped on Jennifer. Faye said she had never seen a look so sincere, gentle yet intense, as if Brandon instantly knew the girl standing before him was meant to become his whole world. Jennifer, just 19 at the time, was radiant and full of life. She had a rare purity about her, strong yet sweet, the kind of person you liked instantly. Brandon was 10 years older, calmer, more grounded, carrying the smile of a man who had known loss and learned how to cherish love. They talked, laughed, and shared simple things, family, life, dreams. No one could have imagined that this brief conversation would spark a relationship that would soon be filled with storms. In the days that followed, Brandon began appearing more often. He helped Jennifer fix her car, took her fishing, and showed up at her house with a handful of wildflowers picked from the roadside. Faye recalled he looked at her like no one else existed. The two quickly became the town's favorite couple, the young woman with dreams of becoming a doctor and the devoted, steady man who always seemed to be right by her side. Their friends believed this was a rare kind of love, simple, genuine, and deeply rooted. Brandon respected Jennifer's independence, and she admired his warmth and maturity. They fit together like perfect pieces of a quiet Southern love story. But back then, no one could have predicted how that pure love would slowly twist under the weight of jealousy, pressure, and the fear of losing someone you can't imagine living without. Their story began like so many others, with smiles, glances, and sweet promises. But only a few years later, that same love would turn into a nightmare no one saw coming. This is Murder of Jennifer Sheffield, a true crime stories case Mississippi will never forget. Time passed, and like so many marriages after the sweetness of the early years faded, Jennifer and Brandon's life together began to change. Not because of betrayal, not because of violence, but because of small, quiet things that no one notices. Until it's too late. By then, Jennifer was fully immersed in her medical studies. Her days began at 5 a.m. and ended close to midnight, filled with dense textbooks, long hours of labs, and intense clinical rotations. She kept telling Brandon, "If I can just get through this year, everything will be fine." But this year kept turning into the next. Brandon, who had once been so proud of his hard-working, determined wife, slowly began feeling like he was being left behind. He worked, provided for the family, took care of the kids. Yet in the bright glow of the future Jennifer was chasing, he began to feel faded. No one said it out loud, but between them an invisible wall had started to rise. Dinners grew quieter. Brandon spoke less. Jennifer was exhausted, and the casual "Are you okay?" Fez disappeared. There were no fights, just drifting eyes, unfinished sentences, and unspoken thoughts. They still loved each other, but that love was slipping slowly, quietly, and neither knew how to pull it back. Their friends noticed nothing. On social media, Jennifer still posted cheerful family photos, her smile as bright as ever. But behind that smile were nights she cried alone in the kitchen, struggling to balance her dream with her responsibilities. And Brandon, who once felt like her steady shoulder to lean on, began sinking into a deep sense of inadequacy. unsure of what he still meant to his wife. He still loved her, but that love now carried fear. Fear of being replaced, fear of no longer being needed, fear of losing the person who once meant everything. There was no villain in this part of the story. Just two people quietly drifting apart, not through anger, but through a silence longer and heavier than either expected. And in that silence, something dark began to grow, slowly, quietly, but powerful enough to change everything that came after. Do you believe that sometimes a tragedy doesn't need a villain, only two hearts that once beat together slowly falling out of rhythm? Stay with me, because from this moment on, their love will never be the same again. By the end of 2024, as winter laid its first thin layer of mist over Mississippi, Jennifer and Brandon made a decision no one ever thought they would. They agreed to divorce. There were no shouting matches, no tears, no accusations, just two people sitting across from each other in the same kitchen that once echoed with laughter, quietly admitting, "We tried." But maybe this is where we stop. To their friends, they still seemed like the model couple, calm, respectful, mature. Jennifer kept going to class, kept caring for the girls, kept smiling in her TikTok videos. In a clip posted on December 10th, she sat in her car, sunlight streaming through the window, her voice soft but hopeful. "I'm about to be a newly single mom. My husband is being incredible, really and truly. We're splitting everything down the middle. It's a civil divorce." It sounded like reassurance, like proof that everything was under control. She believed that even if they weren't husband and wife anymore, they could still be friends, still raise their daughters peacefully. In the video, she smiled as she spoke about the future, about how everything will be okay, about finishing medical school and providing for her kids on a single income. But behind her voice there was a faint tremble, as if even she wasn't fully convinced by her own words. She ended the video with a small, fragile question, almost whispered. "If you have any tips for being a single mom, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm a little scared right now." Just 18 days later, people would refer to that clip as Jennifer's final video. But in that moment, she still believed in goodness. She still believed Brandon was the man who knew how to love, who would think of their daughters first, who would keep his promises. No one knew that while Jennifer spoke about cooperation and gratitude, Brandon was slipping deeper into a darkness no one saw coming. He was the one who initiated the divorce, yet he couldn't bear the thought of her truly leaving his life. Neighbors later said they heard footsteps around the house at night, the soft click of a door in the early hours. But no one imagined something terrible was approaching. Sometimes love doesn't die because of betrayal, but because one person refuses to accept the ending. And Jennifer, with her trusting heart and gentle spirit, had no idea that while she was smiling and thanking everyone for their support, someone else was already preparing for the moment everything would fall apart. Stay with me, because what happened after that video is the part that will make you remember the name Jennifer Sheffield forever. When Jennifer posted that TikTok video, the whole world saw a woman who looked strong, calm, and ready to face whatever came next. But on the other side of the screen, there was a man slowly losing his grip on reality. Brandon Sheffield, the man Jennifer called incredible, was beginning to unravel at the thought of her truly leaving him. At first, he tried to act normal. He stayed silent on social media. He smiled politely at neighbors. But when night fell, the glow of his phone exposed something darker, his eyes turning cold and frozen whenever he saw Jennifer messaging someone. A name he didn't recognize. A heart emoji. Play simple, take care that seemed harmless to anyone else. But to Brandon, it ignited something primal, possession. Brandon, the man who once taught his daughters how to love, now sat alone in the dark, scrolling through old photos, replaying Jennifer's voice again and again. He's being incredible. Each time he heard it, the words echoed like mockery inside his head. Jennifer thanked him for letting her go, while he, the one who initiated the divorce, could not handle the reality of her actually moving on. Friends said Brandon became a different person during this time. He spoke less. His eyes grew heavier, darker. Sometimes he would stare into nothing, as if listening to a voice only he could hear. No one realized that what was consuming Brandon wasn't sadness. It was something far more dangerous, obsession. People later recalled that a few days before Christmas, Brandon drove through Jennifer's neighborhood, parking outside her home as the lights slowly went out inside. He didn't knock. He didn't call. He simply sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles split and bled, breathing in the cold Mississippi air. In Brandon's mind, love and pain had fused together. He could no longer tell the difference between wanting her to be happy and wanting her to be incapable of happiness without him. Meanwhile, Jennifer still believed their divorce was unfolding peacefully. She kept posting videos, going to class, calling friends, and insisting things were fine. But in the shadows, Brandon had already crossed the most dangerous line, the point where a person loses control of their emotions and begins to believe that if they can't have someone, then no one can. And no one should. From here on, the soft light of their once beautiful love story is about to go dark, completely. And what replaces it will be a night with no sunrise. Stay with me, because what happens next will make you shiver every time you hear the words "he's being incredible." Ever again. 18 days. That was the time between Jennifer's final smile on TikTok and the morning that left all of Mississippi in stunned silence. During those 18 days, Jennifer lived as if life were opening up for her again. A mother, a medical student, a woman learning how to stand back up after a heartbreak. She still went to class, stayed late in the lab, and drove home through soft golden sunsets. Friends said she looked happier, lighter. It was like she'd been set free, one recalled. But on the other side of those same 18 days, Brandon didn't sleep. Every night he drifted in and out of half-conscious nightmares, replaying Jennifer's video, listening to that line, "He's being incredible," over and over until her gentle voice felt like a blade. In his mind, it was no longer praise. It was goodbye. Jennifer had no idea that while she typed lecture notes on her laptop, while she cooked dinner for her daughters, while she said, "God has a plan for all of us," that plan was quietly approaching a point of no return. From the outside, everything still looked peaceful. A small house on Toulon Street, warm lights glowing through the windows, children's laughter echoing across the porch. But behind those walls, fate had already begun to shift. Every night Brandon texted her, kind, gentle, sounding exactly like the man she had once spoken so lovingly about in her video. He asked about the kids, about school, about the new home she was looking at. Jennifer responded politely, thanking him for always being good to me and the girls. She believed they had truly found a way to stay friends, but perhaps the most dangerous moment in anyone's life is when you think you're safe, while the monster is already sitting right beside you. As the year drew to a close, Jennifer kept posting on TikTok, talking about her plans for the new year, how she would finish her medical program, how Kylie would start piano lessons, how Gracie would go to summer camp. She smiled at the future, never realizing that future was quietly shrinking with every passing day. The clock kept ticking, steady and indifferent, but for Brandon, each tick was a reminder. She's slipping away, and when a fragile heart cannot accept loss, sometimes it chooses the only way it knows to make time. Stop forever. Morning of December 28, 2024. Dawn in Brandon, Mississippi was as gentle as ever, the sky still heavy with mist, the streetlights not yet fully faded. No one knew that inside a small house on Toulon Street, the deadliest tragedy of that winter had just taken place. Around 7 a.m., Jennifer's mother called her as she did every morning. No answer, one call, two calls, messages left unread. Jennifer, the woman who replied even during lab hours, had gone completely silent. Sensing something was terribly wrong, her family drove to her home. When they arrived, everything felt disturbingly off. The front door slightly ajar, curtains still drawn, Jennifer's car parked in the driveway. No sound except the winter wind rushing across the porch. They knocked. No response. And when the door finally swung open, the smell of gunpowder mixed with the metallic scent of blood flooded out. What they saw inside would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Jennifer lay motionless on the floor, her body covered in gunshot wounds, at least 3. Nearby was Brandon. His body slumped beside the gun, a fatal self-inflicted shot to his head. It had all happened quickly. No screams, no final words, only silence. One of their young daughters had been in the house that morning, likely asleep when everything happened. Police later said only one thing: she was not physically harmed, but no one dared imagine the trauma that would follow her for the rest of her life. As police cars and ambulances arrived, the red and blue lights washed over the windows, flashing against the wall where Jennifer once hung her wedding photos. Outside, neighbors stood frozen, shocked into silence. The smiling young woman from TikTok, the one who spoke of a peaceful divorce, now lay lifeless in the home she once thought was safe. 18 days. Just 18 days between a smile and death. Between he's being incredible and Brandon shot Jennifer before turning the gun on himself. Police described the scene as a murder-suicide, a moment where love twisted into control, where weakness turned into brutality. Outside, snow began to fall. White flakes covered the roof, the small street, as if trying to hide the horror of what had just happened. But nothing could cover the emptiness the tragedy left behind. A gentle mother lost, a father consumed by darkness, and 2 little girls orphaned on a bitter winter morning. Sometimes love doesn't end with a goodbye. Sometimes it ends with a gunshot. The funeral for Jennifer and Brandon was held on January 5, 2025, on a bitterly cold morning. Outside, snow blanketed the grounds of the Orton Lee Funeral Home, still and silent, as if the entire town of Brandon was holding its breath. Inside, every pew was filled. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, and former classmates who had once walked the halls with her. 2 caskets sat side by side, covered in white flowers. No one spoke. Faye Lott, the friend who witnessed the very beginning of their love story, stood quietly for a long time before she finally found her voice. It trembled as she said, "I was there the day they met." Brandon looked at her with the eyes of a man who truly loved her. And Jennifer. She was the light in every room she walked into. I still don't understand what could have made that light go out so fast. In the front row, Professor Stan Baldwin, Jennifer's mentor in her medical program, bowed his head, eyes red. He said softly, "Jennifer was the kind of student every teacher hopes to have. Brilliant, dedicated, and driven by a genuine desire to help others. She didn't study medicine just to be a doctor. She studied to save lives. And the most heartbreaking part is that the person who needed saving the most was her." After the funeral, Brandon's brother created a GoFundMe page to support the 2 little girls, Kylie and Gracie. The description was short but devastating. 2 children lost both their parents in a single morning. They don't need blame. They need a chance to grow up surrounded by love. The Mississippi community responded immediately. Thousands sent condolences, donated and shared Jennifer's final video as a reminder. Never ignore the small signs of despair. Time passed, and the house on Toulon Street was eventually sold. But for those who knew the story, it would forever remain the memory of a loving mother, a woman who believed in kindness, and a man who let the darkness inside him win. Today, the 2 girls are cared for by their maternal relatives. Sometimes, people see photos of Kylie holding her sister's hand in front of their mother's picture, smiling softly as if whispering, "Mom, we're doing okay." Jennifer believed in love, in kindness, in the hope that people could change through understanding. But that very belief kept her from seeing the truth. Sometimes a storm can hide behind a smile, and the person who promised to protect you can be the one who ends everything. As the screen fades to black, all that remains is the sound of wind moving through the trees, soft as a prayer. A story ends, but its echo remains, reminding us that sometimes love must be seen with reason before it's given with the heart.